I thought he was rather impressive. I mean, he looks like a man from the city who's coming to deliver a budget, but there was some theatre in there, a crack at John McDonnell. What was interesting is normally in budgets you expect a rabbit from the hat at the end. I think we didn't get a rabbit from the hat. What we had is a constant flow of gerbils appearing again and again and again as he kept putting out more and more announcements. I haven't seen that many tangible action announcements in a budget for a long time. Not surprising, of course. It is the first budget with Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, the first one of the new administration. The big change that was expected, huge infrastructure investment, an increase in government borrowing, an increase in money coming out. But of course, at the top, he went straight into coronavirus, the less political element, the element which sort of he tried to bring together, and there's much less aggression across the House. We saw statutory sick pay being made sure that even those who have to self-isolate no longer have to go to a doctor. They can just get a sick note from 111. Changes to universal credit payments and employment support allowance, which will help the self-employed
Can I come in on that? Because that was one of the significant questions I thought from Jeremy Corbyn there when he talked about statutory sick pay. Would everybody get it, or just those on that level of income that get statutory sick pay?
Well, we've just been digging through the Red Book. As I always say every year when we do the budget, Sheila, we get a speech.
Ask me tomorrow.
We get a speech which is 10 or 11 pages, and then we get the book that's 100 pages long. Yeah. He didn't mention a change, so one would presume when he's talking statutory sick pay, if they were mentioning a change, that would come across. Let's remember, statutory sick pay only for those earning the equivalent of 18 grand a year, and is £94 a week, which for many people is a really big drop. The other thing, though, the self-employed was changes to those who were on employment support allowance, which does allow self-employed people to claim it. It's either separate or within universal credit, depending how you go. But just to give you evidence of the things he didn't say that are in there, a relatively positive one, this one, just discovered the junior ISA limit is to go up from £4,368 to £9,000 a year, a more than doubling. Not that big an impact on the Treasury because most people no longer pay tax on savings, so the junior ISA, the lost tax from putting it in a junior ISA is relatively negligible, but there's a lot we have yet to learn. And
on the question of government borrowing, I mean, there's a lot to pay for there, isn't there, in that announcement, particularly on the infrastructure, particularly on coronavirus?
One does have to look at, it's just worth doing a sliding doors moment and imagining that this was John McDonnell delivering that budget, spending that much money on infrastructure, spending £30 billion on the coronavirus, and you can imagine the shouts from the Tory benches about the magic money tree. Well, it seems because Rishi Sunak comes from the city and wears a suit, he is allowed a magic money tree, and he has got one. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, by the way. I'm talking that was a bit of political analysis. Look, we are in need of radical economic stimulus to get us through, I'm going to say it, the likely recession on the back of coronavirus in the short term. £30 billion pumped out. Let's not forget this morning interest rates were cut to their lowest level in over 200 years, joint lowest at 0.25%, down 0.5%. This is emergency CPR on the economy that they are attempting to try and keep everything running.
Still waiting, I know this doesn't really massively fall into your remit, but still waiting to hear on specifics on social care, because, again, Jeremy Corbyn right to point out that carers going in and out of the homes of the most vulnerable, there couldn't be a worse model, in a sense, for trying to contain coronavirus. And I've had carers on the phone this week saying, we don't know yet what we're meant to do.
No, I think it isn't necessarily the place in the budget to do that. That's announcements from other departments. But we are in such a state of flux. I do have a little bit of sympathy for everybody involved in this. In my own very small world, my team and I, we've been working on travel insurance, we've been working on sick pay, trying to find out exactly how it works. And just the resource to keep up with the information and the change that's happening every day on coronavirus, the resource needed is huge. So there's a lot of difficulty out there. But you're quite right, we cannot have people going into care homes because they need the money, caring for people who are carrying the contagion towards elderly people. And that needs to be sorted out. But we simply didn't hear anything about that in the budget. Though you do have to question, is that a budget announcement or is that a health department and social care announcement? So, you're right, it's not my remit, I can't answer it. But
you kind of can.
There was so much in there, Sheila. Yeah. It was quite staggering. Normally have a lot of explanation and few action. Here we had just constant action and little explanation, which makes it quite difficult to be doing the summary.
And some of it was what we expected, deferring tax payments over an agreed period, and they've got new people at the end of a phone, presumably from tomorrow, for people to call. The business interruption loan scheme was an interesting one, wasn't it?
The £3,000 grants to businesses that's helicopter money. I mentioned that before when we were talking earlier, this concept of helicopter money. Imagine money being dropped from the sky. Well, giving companies who are eligible to, now business rates will be wiped out for companies with less than £51,000 retail business rates, and giving them also the opportunity to get a £3,000 grant. That is pure direct stimulus. It's not the old type of quantitative easing where they pumped it into the banks. It's helicopter money given directly into the economy to try and stimulate spending going on. It's the type of thing we've not seen before. We're not the only country likely to be doing it. I think it's going to be happening all around the world. They want to keep the money flowing. But he's right to say supply side, it's likely up to 1 in 5 workers may be off at any one time due to coronavirus or self-isolating. Demand side, people aren't going to shops, they aren't going to restaurants, they're not spending. If we all have to be quarantined inside our homes, of course, that's going to get even worse, and there'll be less spending for the economy.
And that business
so the economic knock-on impact is huge here.
The business rates announcement was interesting, wasn't it? That would be a relief to a lot of the kind of businesses you just mentioned there in the service sector.
Absolutely. We already had business rates down 50% in the retail sector. He's expanded the sector that's covered, and he said for this year there won't be business rates for those who with rateable values under 51,000. The business rate system in this country is broken. We've had this radical change towards online shopping, and yet high street stores are penalised and have much higher taxes than online stores. And those online stores are often not paying all the full tax rates you would expect anyway. The big international giants aren't anyway. So that needs to be redressed. And he said he will announce a report into that. But in the short term, those smaller companies will see business rates disappear for this year, which I think, if you're out there you're an independent, you own your own shop, and you're sitting there and you've got very few customers coming through the door right now, which is understandable, you need all the help you can get.